Six indeed has a dark and twisted story. Who ate a live rat and a gnome which turned out to be another runaway kid from the Secrets of the Maw DLC. She also did not care about any other imprisoned kids in the Maw, even though she had the chance to free them. She finally ate the lady and absorbed her powers, which seemed a bit dark. Not only what this power could do, but also because it looked dark. And Six's future, starting from the events in the Pale City, only will become more sinister. In today's video, I will explain what will happen to Six in the future, analyzing the hints, theories, and evidence we are provided from the past, and events that happened in Little Nightmares 2. As it's going to be a theory, and I'm not a fortune teller, take this with a grain of salt. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and here is the dark fate of Six and what will happen to her. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and beware, as there will be spoilers. To understand the theory better, let's understand who Six is, what her origins might be from scattered information we have, analyze the events that happened throughout the games, and what is likely to happen to her. Six is said to be a 9-year-old girl, and according to the official Bandai Namco's website, Six's description reads as a girl who awakens in a world she cannot recognize. This reinforces the theory that Six is amnesiac, and as I spoke in my previous videos about the comics, Six struggles to remember her past and also chooses not to remember. The description further reads as Six has seen more than any normal child, but then Six is not a normal child. Pen that idea. Six is not a normal child. We already know that. She's strong and is a survivor. What else made this text hint? Might this text suggest that Six also has powers? Not only from the lady, but other powers? Which could explain how she could absorb the lady's powers through eating her? And as we know Six, she has a dark shadow that appears every time she eats after having abnormal bouts of hunger which she cannot control, even before eating the lady and absorbing her powers. The eating is also accompanied by lights flickering. Again, another evidence that you should pin, light flickering, which we will get back to further down the video. The description also implies that Little Nightmares 2 is actually a sequel, as Six has already seen more than any normal child should see. Six, other than being amnesiac, is accompanied by a shadow figure which appears every time she eats, after suffering uncontrollable hunger bouts forcing her to eat anything she can get her hands on. On top of that, she doesn't seem to be someone who cares about anyone who's not useful to her, as evident from the events in the Maw, where she doesn't attempt to save any other kids, unlike our unnamed protagonist in Very Little Nightmares, who risked her own life to save an imprisoned child. You might say that Six tried to save the unnamed girl, but she did that as the unnamed girl proved to be useful to her. In Little Nightmares 2, Six seems to be amnesiac again, stuck in a room in the hunter's house. Mono frees her and saves her several times throughout the game, but he eventually gets betrayed by Six, where he's dropped to the depth to grow into a thin man to repeat the loop, and then getting freed by a young Mono to repeat the loop all over again. So now we know Six is not someone we can trust. She has frequent episodes of amnesia, she suffers from hunger bouts, and eats anything in her way. She's accompanied by a shadow figure that appears every time she eats, with lights flickering. And one final point that separates her from majority of the children is that it seems that she absorbs the life force or even the powers of people she consumes, as evident from the end of Little Nightmares 1. Maybe that's why Bandai Namco describes her as not a normal child. This has caused a lot of debate over the past few days when I came up with the theory that Six is the lady. Many suggested that the lady is a complete different character, or that it's possible that Six is the lady's daughter. As it's a theory, take it with a grain of salt. However, I will analyze a lot of clues and evidence that have been provided to us which do suggest that Six is the lady, or at least she will become a similar character to the lady and will eventually take her place. First clue is that Six is amnesiac. She doesn't remember or chooses not to. She doesn't remember how she ended up in the Maw or the Pale City's wilderness. She is only guided by her instinct, or in other words, her shadow and her hunger. Therefore, she is drawn to the Maw by her instinct to eat, as she suffers from another bout of hunger at the end of Little Nightmares 2, which means that's where she will spend the rest of her life and possibly grow to become the lady. Second clue is that 6 absorbs the lady's powers, which are similar to hers, absorbing life forces. But 6 does that through consumption. We don't see much of the lady, so we can't say if she consumes people how 6 does. But maybe her power allows her to consume life forces without needing to eat them. At the end, 6 manages to absorb life forces of some of the guests when she's walking towards the exit. Maybe in that way, she doesn't need to eat anymore, as her dark shadow gets satisfied like that. So maybe her hunger is not to do with eating, but absorbing life force. Maybe that's why she ate the gnome instead of the sausage that he was offering to her. The lady is an essential part of the Ma, and vice versa. As Bandai Namco's description reads about the lady casts the hypnotic spell that keeps the engine running, amidst the chaos outside. The Ma is the only place that makes sense. That is exactly why 6 decides to return to the Ma at the end of Little Nightmares 2. She can't find life forces in the Pale City. Maybe that's why her powers are gone here as well. Her powers have drained. The Ma is the only place that makes sense for her. She needs to return there, farm the guests so she can absorb their life forces. But if the lady is gone and that she was the only thing running the engine, who will do it? 6 would be able to do that with her new hypnotic powers. Then the text carries on reading that the rumor of an escaped child threatens everything. Nothing can be allowed to interfere. The guests must eat. The Ma must survive. That reinforces the theory that the Ma is a necessity to the lady, and whether she has forgotten as she's amnesiac or not, she knows that 6 is a threat to her. If she doesn't know, that's why she's protecting the Ma from an escapee child. And if she knows that 6 is herself, then she's trying to defend herself not to die and not suffer from the same fate that she inflicted on the lady, her future self. We can also read the guests' description as they are an essential part of the Ma's life cycle, and that they are herded into large halls where they feed without taste, without need, and without end. Then they leave one way or another. This strongly suggests that the guests are fed and bred just like farm animals to be killed and used, as it reads that they will leave one way or another, and that is why we stumble upon a room filled with shoes and suitcases. I will hugely expand on this theory in the later videos. 6 tells her story in the comic, that she saw the lady and wondered to herself that what she's hiding and what has she seen. Where we transition into the eye of the geisha mask, that strongly suggests what the lady has gone through. That the ferryman brings her to the Ma, but the person ferryman transported to the Ma wears a yellow raincoat and resembles 6 strongly. Then we have some texts about a shadow bringing her back to the Ma. And 6 seems to remember the same memory, that she was transported into the Ma. So this is in fact a shared memory, showing that 6 is in fact the lady. Some other smaller details that we can go over here are lights tend to flicker whenever 6 eats. The lights also flicker when she wears her raincoat in Little Nightmares 2. And in Secrets of the Ma, lights also flicker when the runaway kid sees an unmasked lady looking at her deformed face in the mirror. Could this be a viable hint? Also analyzing the paintings in Little Nightmares 1, we can see the lady standing next to a child resembling 6 with one of her feet crossed, what we often can observe in 6's standing or idle animations. Also, as the lady is never seen with any child, this could also hint out that this image is actually from the same person in different ages. There are also some other images that show the same girl in a yellow dress with shorter hair, which gradually is seen growing in later images, where this girl also grows in height. One of the images has marker markings on the face of the child. In Little Nightmares 2, at the end, in a room where Monstrous 6 is, a painting is seen on the wall with a tall woman having scratched face, with similar attire to the girl standing to the lady painting in Little Nightmares 1. This could hint out this painting is from the future, but as time and space is scrambled in the radio tower, it appears here. And what is the significance of the face being scratched? It's because she has a deformed face at this stage in the painting. If you look at a painting lower than this one on the right, you can see an image of a person with a deformed face, extremely similar and reminiscent of what an unmasked lady looks like. There's a strong correlation that Six is the lady stuck in a time loop similar to Mono, or at least Six will become similar to the lady in the future and will take her position. If you thought that Mono suffers a horrible fate in a loop, Six suffers a far greater sinister fate. Six presumably has a dark power with unknown origins, possibly born that way even, that makes her crave to eat, and hence she has her shadow. I'm not sure if the shadow has something to do with the raincoat or not, but that's something we can talk about in later videos. Six becomes the lady, someone who is bound to the maw, a place where guests are lured in to feed and die, in order for the lady to absorb their life force. And for the maw to keep running, the lady has to use her hypnotic powers. In a way, she's imprisoned as well, just like Mono, in her own prison, the maw, waiting to be eaten by a younger version of herself, which she will presumably forget about, or simply waits for the inevitable death. Not a great life to have, if you ask me. And that about does it for this video, folks. What are your thoughts about Six and Mono, and this whole loop dilemma they're stuck in? Let me know by leaving your comments down below. For more videos, stay tuned right here by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, thanks for watching the video. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.